Hello, everyone, and welcome into the WST Bombers Report. My name is Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Zach Schnitzer. He's my co-host right here on the Bombers Report. You also watch him after every single Bomber game on the Bonfire Winnipeg YouTube channel. Him and Darren Bombing fire up the post-game show, and they went live right after the Bombers' 17-16 win. Sure didn't feel like a win, felt like a loss, but they won against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So Zach's joining me all season long right here on the WST Bombers Report, and super excited to be joined by him now to discuss what was a very, very ugly win. Zach, how are you doing today?
Man, it was so, I have never felt, I don't know how you felt, I have never felt so deflated after a win. It was like, it was like, there's games in years ago where you'd win and like Darvin Adams got hurt or Maurice Leggett got hurt. I remember back in the day and they beat, this was in 2016, they beat BC, knocked them out of the playoffs, but it was like, I don't actually feel that good because this team's not going to be able to compete without those guys. So it felt like that. And it was just, we'll talk about it, man. But yes, this team has clinched the playoffs for the 9th straight year. If they win next week, they're going to have double-digit wins for the 9th straight year. They've been to 5 Grey Cups in 9 years since 2016, because I don't count 2015-14 because they had no players, right? So I mean, it's great. And if you would ask me in 2016, we clinched the playoffs, we're going to cross over, I'd be like, we clinched the playoffs, amazing. Right. But the standard for this team, Connor, is Grey Cup. It's winning the West Division. This team is going to have to go on the road. And they're going to have to go on the road to get a home game, which would be the Grey Cup, which would, by the way, be in their home locker, thanks to our friend Jeff Hamilton, sleuthing that for us.
Yes.
So it's not good. And we'll talk about this too, man. Does anyone think this team can go on the road to Montreal and win a playoff game? Or go to BC Place and win a playoff game right now? Honestly,
to go back to your point about feeling bad after a loss, I feel like that's been kind of the theme of the season, or feeling bad after a win. Excuse me, I said that backwards. But yeah, I've felt that way a number of times this season. Yes. It feels like, I don't know, whether it's, they win with Chris Streveler, but Vavel had 2 touchdowns and it was a defensive touchdown. Like, you didn't feel great after that one. You didn't feel great after the Ottawa win when Khalil Pimpleton ran it back 100 yards and it was like, what were they doing on 2nd and 3? You definitely didn't feel good about this one, and we'll talk about it. Like, there have been multiple games this year where they've won and you can't take that away from them, but the process to get there and the standard that you mentioned, Zach, has definitely been raised. And this was absolutely one of those games. Saskatchewan coming in, resting a lot of their starters. You sent me this graphic from the TSN broadcast, Zach. Trevor Harris, AJ Ouellette, Kashawn Johnson, Dante Myers, Samuel Emelis, all not playing in this game. And the Bombers win by 1 point on a walk-off Sergio Castillo field goal. In the rain, it wasn't a beautiful night at Princess Auto Stadium, but the Bombers got the win. Here's how the numbers kind of shook out. 17-16 was the final. Net yardage 278 to 169 in favor of the Bombers. Not a lot of offense in this game for either side. First down 17-11 for the Bombers. Big plays 1-0 for Saskatchewan, and then the turnovers. 3-1. The Bombers turning the ball over 3 times and only forcing 1 turnover against Jake Mayer and Jack Cohn, the 2 quarterbacks for Saskatchewan. Yeah, exactly. Well, man, them putting in Jack Cohn, I know it was the plan going in. I did some, back research to see if that was like a move away from Jake Mayer for some reason, because the Riders were winning. That was the plan going in, was to play Jack Cohn for a quarter for the Riders. And that just added to my anger even more on this game. It's like, if they put in their 3rd string quarterback and still somehow win this game, that would be, you just go even further. Like, Jake Mayer's been in the league. He's won games in the league. It's what, that wouldn't anger me as much, but Jack Cohn coming in the 4th, that would have been a very, very ugly loss, but they won. Where do you kind of start with this game, Zach? And why do you have that feeling of they won, but not feeling great about this team? Where do you start?
Dude, it's a broken record with us here.
Turnovers.
It's the offense, Connor.
And the offense.
And it's the offense again. And it's the team winning in spite of the offense again. And I will get to Trey Vavel because I have a take on Trey Vavel that might be controversial here, Connor, but we'll get to that.
Wow.
I'm going to read you a stat line, okay? 15 first downs, 44% on second down, 5.1 average gain, 255 net offense, 1 big play, 2 interceptions, and 1 big pass, okay? That is Zach Collaros' first game in week 3 on the road against BC, Connor.
Yeah.
Up until last night, that was the worst offensive performance that Zach has started. I'm not including the Streveler games, okay? Because those are outliers for reasons we don't have to get into, as evidenced by 3 completions against Ottawa a few weeks ago. So that was, and you think, okay, Brady Oliveira wasn't playing. There were changes to the O-line, okay? It was Zach's first game because he was suspended the first game.
Right.
It's his first game in a Jason Hogan offense, which is new to him. It was on the road. I don't know if I said that already. And it was a back-to-back against BC. And it's tough to win back-to-backs. It's even tougher to do it when the second leg's on the road. And, it's Buck Pierce. He knows what we're doing. All those things, okay? That one you can excuse. Bombers win that game 27-14. You're thinking that's the beginning of the season for all those reasons. Okay, fine. We'll throw the tape out. But then you fast forward to week 20, okay? In a game at home against the Riders, it's sold out. This is the biggest game of the year. The playoffs are on the line, Connor. You've just been embarrassed. Collaros has just had his worst game of the year versus Edmonton on the road and his best game of the year versus Hamilton a couple weeks before, winning 40-3, where they eviscerated the Ticats. This is the biggest game of the year. This is against Riders backups. Okay, they had tons of backups on offense and a few on defense too. Micah Johnson wasn't playing. Ray wasn't playing. Sales wasn't playing. This is a team that gives up a lot of pass yards. You saw what Collaros did in Labor Day. And what do the Bombers do on the most important game of the year when the offense, for all those reasons, should be, all hands on deck? This should have been a blowout. And the Bombers offense has arguably their worst game of the year. This was the only game, Connor, of the entire year against backups where the Bombers almost all the Bombers starters were in, except for Dembski. And I know he makes a big difference, but they had 0 big plays for the first time this year. 0. Chris Streveler started for this team and threw 3 completions and had more big plays. Okay? 0 rushes of 20 plus. We'll get into Brady and how he wasn't used for literally 20 minutes of game clock. And I'll give our buddy Remus some props there because he texted me that at the end of the game. And I hadn't noticed it was that long of a spell. 0 30-yard passes against a depleted secondary, not as much of a pass rush against the secondary that already gives up yards, even if their starters are in. 0. Zach couldn't hit anything downfield. They are 40% on second down. 0 for 3 in the red zone, Connor. That is the worst red zone performance of the year. So for all these reasons, and I could get into more stats. I mean, Zach was 60%. He threw 182 yards, right? Worst performance of the year for Collaros. The offensive line was having trouble, obviously. They go away from Brady again. No red zone efficiency. They had their worst offensive performance, arguably, of the entire season.
I think that's fair to say. I think it is because of the expectations coming in. The Bombers were 8.5-point favorites over at Coolbet for this game, and again, they won. But if you watched the game, it was very ugly, especially offensively. And to me, it goes back to 2 of the points you brought up there, where one was on Zach Collaros. There was a time in the game where his 1 interception came at a brutal time. The Bombers were over midfield. He forces it into triple coverage. The player's not even really open that he was targeting. And that absolutely, very much hurt them in that moment. Brady Oliveira, like you said, 16 carries, 75 yards, 4.7 average. He went about, like a quarter and a half without getting the ball once. And in that time, the Bombers were going 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out. And there was a time in the game, too, where Brett Lawther misses a field goal. Which you can count on him to do recently with Saskatchewan. And Trey Vavel gives the Bombers life. The Bombers were losing the field position game. It was just 2 and out punt, 2 and out punt. And it was eventually the Riders were either going to score a field goal or a touchdown, or they were going to miss a field goal. And somehow, some way, Trey Vavel would bail them out. Trey Vavel got the ball all the way back to midfield, and the Bombers respond by going 2 and out again for probably, I didn't check the stats, but probably like the 400th time in the game. It was, there were a lot of 2 and outs. And look, like I know you're missing Nick Dembski, but I actually thought Gavin Cobb was solid in relief. 4 catches for 44 yards for it being his, big role game. Jarrett Stearns, 4 for 40. He had a crucial drop late in the game as well. Second down, over the middle, hit him right in the chest. Got to catch that. Ontario Wilson, 6 targets, 3 catches, 46 yards, had the 28-yard touchdown. I'd like to see him targeted a little bit more in a game where you're missing Nick Dembski. I think Wilson is your most dynamic outside threat. But again, there were a lot of issues with the biggest one for me with the offense was actually early in the game. Now the interception might have been, a bigger issue for me, but
I'll talk about the interception in a second. Sure. But I know where you're going.
The 2nd and 4 from the 4. So it's 2nd and goal from the 4. And the Bombers have done this a few times this season now, most notably as well at the Labor Day Classic where they did this.
Ironically, against the Riders too. Yeah, same defense.
Against the same defense, so they must like the look. Chris Streveler comes in for Zach Collaros on 2nd and 4. You need 4 yards for a touchdown, and you're taking your quarterback off the field. And we can talk about Zach and the turnovers and the ineffectiveness, but I don't like that decision. They do a little bit of a keeper with Chris Streveler. It's not open to the corner, so he just throws it away, and then they kick an 11-yard field goal. An 11-yard field goal. You're playing Jake Mayer and Jack Cohn at home, and you kick an 11-yard field goal. And if you're going to put in Chris Streveler on 2nd and 4, just run the ball with Brady. Just run the ball with Brady, like right up the middle. Like if the plan is, if we don't convert this on 2nd and 4, we are kicking a field goal. Why is Chris Streveler in the game? I'd like to see Zach Collaros in the game in that moment. Take a shot to the end zone, throw, maybe even hand it off to Brady. I think there are much better options there. And the Bombers' 2nd and 4 and 2nd and 3 and 3rd and 2 offense this season has really been, outside of the turnovers, I'd argue their biggest downfall. It's not quite short yardage where they've been good in 2nd and 1 and 3rd and 1 with Streveler, but it's that extra yard where it just seems like they're overthinking what's going on. And I didn't like the Chris Streveler move on 2nd and 4. Again, I think there's creativity to be had and effectiveness to be had with Chris Streveler on the field. I'm not putting this on him. I think when he's in there on 3rd and 1 and they run a little bit of a misdirection, like he's got the wheels, he's got the leg, he's got the fire to bring some effectiveness to this offense. This isn't a Chris Streveler thing. To me, it's pulling your quarterback off the field on 2nd and 4 when if you don't get a yard, you're kicking an 11-yard field goal at home against Jake Mayer and Jack Cohn. I really disagreed with that one, but you were going to talk about the interceptions, Zach.
Well, I will, but I want to jump on that 2nd and 4 because I think that's a crucial part in this game, and it's a kind of microcosm of how crappy the offense was, Darren. I was going to call you Darren.
That was the first time this season that's happened, so not bad.
You
not
think
bad.
I'm like Jason Hogan, like I am falling to the level of my training at the worst time. I should have called you Darren like the first couple shows.
I know, yeah. What took you a while.
I know what's going on, man. Sorry.
That's a compliment to me. That's a compliment. I'll take it.
That's very great.
Go for it.
So the Bombers are down 10-7, okay? But they just had this incredible drive capped off with a 28-yard touchdown to Ontario Wilson. Yes, they should have targeted more. You totally agree. I totally agree with that. They're down 10-7. They're marching the field for the 2nd straight time. And you're thinking, at least I was thinking, okay, here we go. The Bombers are going to score a touchdown. They're at the 1-yard line because of that nice pop pass to Stearns for 28 yards. Okay. They're going to get a touchdown. They're on the 1. and they're going to pull away in this game. Like, this game's going to be over, okay? The Saskatchewan's offense can't do anything with Jake Maier. But here's what happens. In week 20, and this is another issue. This is the penalties, and we can get into this in a second. Pat Neufeld, who's one of the most veteran guys on the team, takes an unnecessary roughness penalty, which bumps them back to the 6. I know it's only the 6, Connor, but like, first and goal from the 1 is like 99% you're going to get a touchdown. You talked about Chris Streveler. He's going to give you a yard. I don't think they've been stopped on first and goal at the 1 all year. Okay, so it puts them back to the 6. Brady Oliveira runs 2 yards, and then they put in Chris Streveler. Up until that point, Zach Collaros, who you could argue on a good day is the Bombers' best player, they take the ball out of his hands. At that point in the game, though the offense played like crap the rest of the game, he was 6 for 7 for 121 yards in the first quarter. The Bombers were marching with impunity. They take it out of Zach Collaros' hands, and they run the zone read, the exact same zone read as Chris Streveler ran in the Labor Day Classic, which was completely stuffed. They do the same freaking play. He doesn't have the legs to get outside anymore. The Riders don't even have to respect the pass if Streveler's in, because they know he's not going to pass it from there. So they know it's going to be a Brady run, or it's going to be, or he's going to read the defensive end, and Streveler's going to try and go outside. Well, all the linebackers were there because they didn't have to respect the pass, so they were creeping up in the box.
Yeah,
it was awful. And at insult to injury, they had a procedure penalty, no end. So even if Streveler got in the end zone there, no end. A no end penalty means there's no receiver lined up on the line of scrimmage. That is like Pop Warner mistakes. Like, that can't happen in week 20, Connor.
Yeah.
Like, it was awful. And then you talked about Mike O'Shea chipping in with boneheaded decisions, right? Again, going for a short field goal. I mean, this was Labor Day all over again.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing, right?
I'd forgotten about that, Zach. I'd forgotten about that, and you brought it back up. That short field goal is not a fan. Yeah.
Nobody's a fan, okay? Even if you're 3rd and 4, okay, this offense has been humming. Give me Zach Collaros to get you a touchdown on 3rd and 4. A 3rd and goal from the 4.
Yeah.
They trot out Sergio Castillo. Even if they don't get a touchdown there, okay, you're asking Jake Maier, who's not very good. You saw the longest pass of the day was his first pass of the day, which was an absolute duck after a flea flicker when Robustelli was wide open. And Houston made a horrible play on that ball, and we don't even have to get into that. But you're asking Jake Maier, who can't throw the ball very well, to march 106 yards? That's not going to happen. They're going to have to punt. You're going to get the ball back, even if you know. That was ridiculous. But then with the interception, okay?
Yes.
The interception happens with the Bombers down 16-14 with 4:24 left. They finally have a drive going after punt. They punted. Let me just check this, Connor. They punted 1, 2, 3, 5 times in a row. Oof. And as you said, Vavel has given them field position. They start this drive at their own 50. At the 54. They start the drive at midfield. They just need 3 points. I think you and I can agree. If they get the 3 points there, the game's over because Jack Cohn is not marching Riders down the field. Okay. They're 1st and 10. 1st and 10 from the Riders 33. And run the ball with Brady Oliveira. At that point, he had 5.3 yards per play. I added up all his touches. 5.3 yards per play. Run him a couple times, or just even do one of those sweeps, pop, pass, whatever. Stuff like that was working. Instead of that, Zach, who had been horrible all second half, and the line couldn't stop anybody, throws a ball into double coverage and gets picked off on 1st down. Like, what are we doing here? And this is the scariest part, okay? There's a saying in psychology: you do not rise to the level of your expectations or your aspirations. You fall to the level of your training. So, in other words, when the bullets start flying and you have a sold-out crowd who's expecting a win against backups, and there's all kinds of pressure, and you're expected to play your best so you can clinch a playoff spot, they fell to the level of their training, which is not good enough. Their worst traits came out at the biggest time against a backup team, and they were garbage, Connor.
Yeah, and it's honestly, I mean, they pulled it out at the end, and Sergio Castillo had the walk-up field goal, but that interception was the moment where it clicked for me. Like, they might actually lose this game, and they might actually miss the playoffs because they lose this game. And all of it just started kind of snowballing from there. And yeah, that interception can't happen. You look at the second half, punt, interception, field goal. That was the second half offense. And we've talked about their third quarter and second half struggles this season, Zach, especially offensively. They come out in the third quarter and just get steamrolled, usually. So far this season, that's what has happened. Defenses are making adjustments. The Bombers maybe are making adjustments, but the wrong ones. And the third quarters have just really not been kind to them. If there's one thing, I agree with your assessment of the 2nd and 4, the penalties too, which we didn't even talk about. That's very un-Bombers. Like you brought.
I will get to the penalties very quickly, but go ahead.
Sure. Yes. The one thing I do want to say, and I do want to give the Bombers credit for, is if I, driving home from the game, turned on the CJOB postgame show with Derek Taylor and Doug Brown. They do a fantastic job. And then when I get home, throw your guys' bonfire on. If I turned that on and heard Zach Collaros, Brady Oliveira, Mike O'Shea talk about how resilient they were and all of these, I would have lost my mind. Like, you got to call a spade in a situation like this. Credit to the Bombers. Yeah. It sounded like they lost. Derek Taylor and Doug Brown were interviewing these players, and they sounded defeated. They sounded, they were accountable. They said, we know that's not good enough. I know we won, but that's not our brand of football. That's not us. Like, I will give them credit that they took full accountability and they know they need to be a lot better, when there have been times this season where that hasn't been the case. The Ottawa game, the 2nd and 4, the Toronto game when they took a shot on first down in the red zone with a chance to ice the game. Like, those decisions have been questioned this season by the media, and they've liked the decisions. They stood by it. We liked the look. We liked this. We liked this. We liked all of it. Yeah. If they came up and said, yeah, we liked it, we got to win, then that would have been an issue for me. But I'm going to give them credit on being accountable and taking onus of the fact that wasn't good enough. And they know they're not going to come anywhere near a Grey Cup appearance or a playoff win, for that matter, if they play that way. So I will give them credit on that front. Just last thing, get to the penalties, because this was something I noted as well. And then we'll move on to our buy or sell segments and our Blue Crew review.
Sounds good. Just one other thing. I said they had 0 big plays for the first time all season. They actually had 0 big plays in Calgary for that Stampede Bowl, but that game, that's the game where Zach threw 2 pick sixes.
Yes.
Anyway, the other thing is they had 8 punts, Connor, which ties them for the most all year. 8 punts. That's horrible. Against a lot of backups, man. Okay, so the penalties. And I texted you this last night because I was just irate. They have 92 yards of penalties, okay? That's the worst penalty total of their entire season. At the biggest time of the game, biggest time of the season, crunch time, just inexcusable. And this is a veteran-laden team, man. This is the 3rd oldest team in the CFL. They've just been to 5 straight Grey Cups. They should not be taking these penalties. The flea flicker, which was an absolute duck from Jake Mayer, their first offensive possession. Like, if Houston simply turns around, he can knock that ball down. Instead, he misjudges the ball. Robustelli's, downfield, and he literally runs into him with his back turned to the ball. It's like the worst PI, one of the worst PIs I've ever seen. Okay, so that gives the Riders 1st and goal on the one. They get a touchdown. The Bombers have 2 procedure calls. Their starting O-line is in. That O-line is gelled. It's been together for weeks now. Okay? The receivers, no end, as I talked about. Another procedure call, which backs them up from 1st and 5. Brady Oliveira, who had an amazing game and has been arguably the team's MOP, has an offensive offside, which takes like a 25-yard pass from Collaros to Stearns, which would have put him in the red zone, off the board. You can't be offside on offense. And then there was the Patrick Neufeld one at the goal line, which backs them up to the 6, unnecessary roughness from this guy. Then there was on a return where Vavel got them up to about the 40. Jalen Smith takes a illegal block call, which moves them back. I think the penalties, Connor, probably took 10 to 14 points off the board for the Bombers. If they have, this is a team with the lowest penalty total in the CFL, game in, game out, which is, it's their bread and butter. It's probably why they've won some games. If the Bombers just get like even half of those penalties or less, I think their average is like 30 yards of penalties a game. It's ridiculous. They probably win this game like 24-12. But which wouldn't have been great either. It would have covered the spread on Coolbet, but it would be a different conversation. We'd say, yeah, it was ugly, but you know what? They won by double digits. Didn't have their best game. Dembski was out, right? It's all as well. They have two special teams gaffes, Vavel fumble, whatever. But they don't. They won by a single point. So you can't have those types of penalties in the most important game of the year at the most important time of the year. These are penalties you'd expect to see in preseason or the beginning of the year. It was just really, really disappointing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that with the penalties. It's very, I've said this in regards to the penalties so far this season. It's very un-Bomber-like, as well as the turnovers. You know, there are some things that have remained consistent, you know, when they rush 3 on second down and they play very passive defensively. Like, that's been a Richie Hall, Jordan Younger staple this whole time. There have been things that have remained consistent with the Bombers' style of play. You know, the bully ball when they get to Brady Oliveira and they're pushing the pile. But the penalties and the turnovers are something that when the Bombers were at the peak of their powers, Zach still turned the ball over. Don't get me wrong. He's a gunslinger. He threw picks, but that was paired with him throwing, you know, over 20 touchdowns in a season and 25 and winning MOP and all of this stuff. So there was a bit more give and take there than there is right now. And those two things are two of the biggest reasons why we're in the position we are right now with the Bombers going potentially to a crossover and looking not great doing so. Before we get to the buy or sell segment, Zach, let's take a quick look at the CFL standings. Saskatchewan is clinched first in the West at 12-5. BC and Calgary are tied for second. BC is the tiebreaker. They're both at 10-7. Winnipeg is at fourth at 9-8, and Edmonton is 7-10. Winnipeg has clinched a playoff spot, like you said right off the top of the show, Zach. It's their 9th consecutive season. Longest in the CFL. I'm bringing up our notes there. It's a great run for the Bombers. 9th consecutive season making the playoffs, and they, by all accounts, could be crossing over, look to be the crossover team, going to Montreal potentially, who they're going to play this week at Princess Auto Stadium. So it's going to be an interesting week. We'll talk about that later on as well in terms of, you know, the Bombers having clinched. Do they rest players? There's a lot of discussion to be had there. But let's get to our buy or sell segment. This is the part of the show where I pepper Zach with questions, statements, whatever it might be about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he lets me know whether he's buying or selling what I'm telling him. Now, the first buy or sell, and you alluded to a take that you have on Trey Vavel earlier on. And again, I'm just posing the question. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm not buying or selling. I'll give my take after Zach, but Trey Vavel is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers MOP. Buy or sell?
Listen, I'm not saying I'm 100% sold on this, Connor, but I think you can make the argument, right? Like off the top of my head, yeah, you probably look at a guy like Dembski or Brady Oliveira, who's, I think, still the best running back in the CFL.
I think it would be Dembski.
Or Dembski, who's had to be the number one receiver all year. He's third in the league, according to PFF. He's a Canadian, right? Like, he's had to shoulder the load without Sean. All that aside, and again, I'm not saying Vavel is the MOP, Connor. I'm saying you can make a decent argument that the Bombers' rookie kick and punt returner is the MOP. Let's just look at this last game, okay? If you look at the drive chart, you alluded to this. Missed field goal, over 60-yard return. He's now broken the CFL record for missed field, or the Bombers record for missed field goal return. Is it the Bombers record or the CF? I forget. Anyway, I wrote this down. Okay, so he puts the Bombers, their last 3 drives, Winnipeg starts on their own 50 because of Vavel and his returns. They punt. Then they start on their 54, interception by Collaros. And then in the walk-off winning drive, the 14th drive of the game, Vavel has Winnipeg at their 54. So they only have to go, 20, 30 yards to get it very comfortable Sergio Castillo range. So even though he fumbled at the beginning of the game, Connor, I think it's arguable that Vavel won them the game again. He had more return yardage than Zach Collaros had passing.
Really?
On Friday night. Yes. He had 213 total return yards, kicks, punts, missed field goal return. He had the Bombers' only big play of the game, which was that big field goal return, right?
Wow.
I mean, if you look at Vavel's return average from Friday, and again, I know he fumbled, but like Janarian Grant has fumbled a lot of times too. He fumbled in the 21 Grey Cup. Okay. Punt returns, average of 17.2 yards. You might think, oh, that's not bad. Do you know what the highest average is in the CFL? It's Javon Leake and the Edmonton Elks at 13.8. So, like, they don't have EPA for football, Connor, but expected points added for Vavel must be the highest in the league.
Yeah, and
kickoff, right?
Well, sorry, when you go and look at some of the games this season so far, you have the Toronto game where he had 2 return touchdowns. You have the Ottawa game on the road where he had the field goal return touchdown and a few other big returns in that game. You have this one where he's constantly putting the Bombers in good positions. Like, he, as a returner, has had such a massive impact on the Bombers season. I
would say this. And you listed, that's perfect. You took the words out of my mouth. Those are the 3 games I looked at all year, including this Friday, week 20, where Vavel has arguably won them the game. And when you say to yourself, okay, one player, if they don't have those returns, the Bombers are 6-11 right now. They're not even getting in the playoffs. If not for Trey Vavel, who's a rookie, who's also had games where he's started at corner. So he's like, this is like a throwback guy to like the 1950s who's playing on both sides of the ball, right? So he becomes the first Bombers player in franchise history in that Week 9 game against Toronto where Streveler threw 3 interceptions and 178 yards or something. He was garbage. He's the first Bombers player in franchise history to have a punt and a kick return TD in the same game. Okay, so he's breaking Bombers franchise records twice this year. This is a 95-year-old franchise. Right?
Yeah,
it's insane. That Ottawa game you referenced, he sets the CFL record for most missed field goal return yardage. It's like he's now setting CFL records. Right? This is a rookie. It's insane. Right?
It is. It is. He's been everything the Bombers could have asked out of their return game post Janarian Grant that like possible. It's incredible what he's done this year. And he definitely has a case to be in the conversation. I'm with you on that. And I know you're not saying he is the MOP. You're not saying that definitively. You could definitely argue it. He's directly contributed to multiple wins this season.
And sorry, Connor, one more thing. He's first in return yardage, okay, which is just punt and kick and missed field goal returns. He's in the league, and he's a rookie, right? He's second in combined yards. And the only reason he's second, so that's combined yards is kick returns and your production on offense, so running and catching.
Right.
The only reason he's second in combined yards is because Javon Leake has taken over 200 for Edmonton, taken over 200 snaps on offense.
Yeah.
So you take that away, he's the highest in combined yards in the CFL, and he doesn't play on offense.
He plays corner. He's played big roles and big moments at corner this year. He came in the Ottawa game. I remember us talking about it. He had the long field goal return touchdown. And then later in the game, I think it was Jamal Parker got hurt. So Trey Vavel was coming in cold defensively speaking, on third down, and they threw it at him, and he had great coverage on the guy. He even earlier in the season was a totally he was a perfectly fine corner. Like he was an above average corner, I'd even say. It took him a few games to get going. Like the start was maybe rough, but he can play corner. He can play, he can obviously return kicks. So yeah, incredible season from Trey Vavel. And we'll have more on him probably next week, when we wrap the regular season, and with the Bombers in the playoffs, maybe he'll have a kind of a vintage moment for us. That was buy or sell. Thank you for, I won't thank people yet, because what I want them to do is let us know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with what I was telling Zach. Is Trey Vavel in the Bombers MOP conversation? Like I said, I still think it's Nick Dembski, but I do think that there's a case for Trey Vavel to maybe be a runner-up. Let's get to our final segment, Zach, before we talk about the upcoming week, and that's the Blue Crew Review. This is the part of the show where we put out a tweet online asking people for questions. We were a little late with posting the tweet. That was my bad. I was, locked into to other things. But
you were doing the Jets, man. It's all
right.
Good.
The Jets, the Saturday, of course, yes. But yeah. You posted it, Zach, and you got one question on Twitter from Curtis, who said, how mad will you be when Brady doesn't re-sign here? So obviously he's alluding to the lack of usage in this game. Brady Oliveira is a free agent at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I can't see that happening. I just can't. I don't know if this is my Blue Bomber goggles being on, but Brady Oliveira lives and breathes and bleeds blue. He's from here. He's played here his whole life. I can't see him. I can't see him.
Yeah.
I can't see it.
So I had to look this up because I thought it was a 1-year contract as well.
Oh, is it 2? Is he under contract next year?
In February, he signed a 2-year contract totaling, So he turned down a 2-year contract from the Ticats, who were offering him $550,000 for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking here. I think it's a 2-year in Winnipeg. I don't know why it's not coming up here. Maybe you can look it up as I'm chatting here.
Yeah, I'm searching it up too. I'm not seeing anything. I see February 2024. They signed him to a 2-year extension. So this is the second year of 2.
Okay.
This is the second year of 2.
Okay. Yeah, right. Of course. So you're right. Okay. So here's, we don't have time to get into the metrics, but I think for various reasons, Brady Oliveira is arguably the best running back in the CFL.
For sure.
Maybe Justin Rankin is ahead of him, but on a down-to-down basis, because Justin Rankin's kind of boom or bust, Brady Oliveira is your horse, especially with a declining offensive line, Connor. Mm-hmm. He has the second best overall grade among running backs in the CFL, and he has the highest receiving grade. And there's been games where Brady has been used in the passing game, coincidentally against Montreal when they beat them 26-13. So, he had over 100 yards receiving. So, and again, shout out to Remus for pointing this out. 8:48 of the third quarter, Bombers against Riders on Friday. Mm-hmm. Brady Oliveira has his last touch of the game. And again, like I said, I tallied these numbers. Until that point, he had a 5.3 yard per touch average. So that's receiving and running. So very, very good average. Okay. You should be able to move the chains as with Brady as your workhorse. For reasons unbeknownst to you or I, unless Jason Hogan somehow is smarter than all of us combined, he once again goes away from Brady Oliveira. I thought, and you thought, we were done with that. Like you saw that early in the season, which was mind-boggling. Okay, he goes away from Brady again. The Bombers proceed to punt the ball 4 times in a row, even with amazing field position from Vavel the last 3 drives, and then they throw an interception. They don't go back to Brady Oliveira till about 3 minutes left in the game. Okay? Yes, Saskatchewan is stacking the box, blah, 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 blah. You could still throw a screen to Brady. Mm-hmm. Earlier in the game, Connor, he might have had his best play of the year where Zach Collaros navigates the pocket, it's breaking down, tosses a screen to Brady, a dump off in the flat, and Brady goes like 20 yards and high hurdles a guy. It was an insane play that will be on the highlight reel in the CFL. One of the best plays of the year. They go away from Brady for reasons unknown. The offense gets bogged down, And what happens in that last drive? Oh, sure enough, they go back to Brady, and what does he do? He gets a 16-yard run against the best run defense in the CFL, right? 16-yard run, rushes again. Then he gets a screen pass for 12 yards. Then he gets 2 rushes again for 9 yards, which sets up the walk-off field goal. So you've gone away from arguably your best player, and they give it back to him, maybe because Hogan was yelled at by O'Shea or somebody, and he gets 39 of the 40 yards on your walk-off winning drive. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, couldn't you have done that in the 4 previous drives where you went 2 and out and then threw an interception? Like, what are we doing here? It's ridiculous. And I've defended Jason Hogan because I think the offense has been better lately, Connor, especially that Hamilton game where they had over 500 yards for the first time all year and Collaros threw the lights out, 40-3. But then they regress. Then they do this. They regress to what they've been doing all year, the struggles they've had all year. And I just don't understand. Brady was, you talked about the last thing I'll say is this. You talked about the post-game comments. The way Brady talked in his interview, you'd think the team was knocked out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He was deflated. He was disappointed. He was discouraged. And he was seething. Like, he was so angry. He was so angry. Mm-hmm. This is your best player. What are you doing? And if Saskatchewan's stacking the box, then throw a pass to him in the flat. Widen out the field. Throw a screen pass. The 2 screen passes he had, he got over 12 or more yards on each. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we doing? This is basic offensive coordinating. Even I think could have called a better game than Jason Hogan, and that's saying a lot because Jason Hogan knows a lot about football. But I don't get it, man, and it's befuddling. And the Bombers were all pissed after the game. Collaros, you should watch that the replay of his post-game comments, folks, because I've never seen so many clipped statements, biting his tongue, his body language, the entire second half. Connor, I don't know if you saw this. I've never seen Collaros so deflated. That's the word I'll use. Deflated. His head was hanging down. Mm-hmm. He was walking slowly. He got absolutely destroyed on one play where I thought he was knocked out of the game. He just looked absolutely deflated. And Chris Streveler was trying to pump him up on the sideline. I mean, this is with the playoffs on the line in a winnable 1-score game. Collaros looks like the season's over. If I would have just seen his body language in that second half, I would have told you, oh, the score must be 40-10 for the Riders. Like, the season's over. This was a winnable game that they had to win. And he was just like, what are we doing here? And it goes to what Jeff Hamilton tweeted yesterday, or maybe it was Friday night, because he did all the interviews with the players and coach. He said in his 10 years of covering the team, he hasn't seen a group of offensive players be so frustrated and so clearly pissed off at an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about every single one of these episodes almost. And the Hamilton game almost gave us, hope in a sense of, okay, maybe the Bombers have found something. They've changed their offense. They put up 500 plus yards and 40 points in that game. And that game, as we get further away from it, is looking more and more like the outlier when we were used to that as the standard and all of those things. So the usage for Brady is a puzzling one. It's been something we've discussed all year, and it did turn a corner. It really did. He was getting, 25 touches a game for a good stretch there. And I don't know. This game was weird because he still ended up with over 20 touches, but it felt like he was being underused because he went so long in between touches with the ball. So that'll be something to watch. I think Brady Oliveira is going to be a Bomber for a long, long time because I just can't see him leaving. Maybe I'm being naive in that sense.
Honestly, Connor, I don't either. But here's what I wonder. If what Jeff Hamilton is saying is correct, and it probably is because he covers the team at home and on the road for 10 years, is it going to come down to Brady versus Hogan? Which is
isn't
shocking.
Hogan Brady's guy though? That's what I thought this whole thing.
Funny thing though, man. Like yes, you remember his MOP speech with Brady?
Yes.
He all he talked about was Jason Hogan.
So he's his guy, and
he's his guy.
So he's his guy, and either they keep Hogan, and so it's either way, because if it's Brady versus Hogan, that choice is obvious.
You think?
Well, yeah, you would. But if Brady is Hogan's guy, then are they going to bring Hogan back to keep Brady? Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts there, but that's a good off-season topic, I'd say, for the Bombers and Brady Oliveira. That's going to do it for our Blue Crew review. Thank you for submitting questions. Keeping it short today, only one question, because we had a lot to get to for the actual game and a lot to get to for this upcoming game. So, Zach, what are you expecting from the Bombers in terms of their lineup? They've clinched a playoff spot. They're probably going to be the crossover team. Where are you at with, do the starters play? Do they play the whole game? Do they play this game to win? Should they play the starters the whole game? Where are you at as we approach this Bombers Alouettes game Saturday at 2 p.m. at Princess Auto Stadium?
The mindset of the Bombers, I think, looking at Mike O'Shea, is they play to win every game. It's very rare that they rest a bunch of guys. Montreal's going to be coming in. It really depends on what happens with the Hamilton-Ottawa game, which is on Friday, right?
Right.
So if Hamilton beats Ottawa on Friday, October 24th, next Friday, they clinch first place. So then Montreal, who plays a day later, 2 o'clock on Saturday, October 25th, have nothing to play for. Mm-hmm. I think if that's the case, I think Montreal rests a lot of starters, and I expect Winnipeg to treat this kind of like a preseason game. I would, especially with the struggles of the offense, I think it would behoove them to put in Collaros in that starting offense and at least get them in gear. But they're not going to want to show too much because they're probably going to play Montreal the next week,
right,
in the playoffs on the road in the Eastern semifinal. I think BC is going to be playing against a Riders team that's not going to start many guys on Saturday at 5 o'clock. I think BC gets second. So I don't think Winnipeg's going to have anything to play for. I don't know that they care whether they go into the West or East. So I don't think they care if they win, even depending on what Calgary does the night before. So I believe if Calgary wins, then Bombers are for sure, or Calgary gets in third. Mm-hmm. Either way, the Bombers, I don't think they care if they're third in the West or fourth in the West to cross over. So there's not going to be a lot to play for. But I do think this team needs psychologically to play a clean game. Mm-hmm. They need to. They can't be taking 92 yards of penalties. They can't be fumbling the ball on kickoffs. They can't be taking offside calls on offense. They can't be taking unnecessary roughness calls on the goal line. Mm-hmm. And they can't keep Brady out of the game for 20 minutes of game time. They need to be consistent. They need to set the tone going into the playoffs. They need to have a good feeling and some momentum going into the playoffs. So I think it's going to be sort of a glorified preseason game, but I think psychologically the Bombers need to put together a few good drives and just not embarrass themselves, Connor.
Yeah, I'm with you. They got to play a clean game. We've been saying it all season long, and we'll see if the starters play and how long they do play for. If they do, I think the best possible outcome for the Bombers on this upcoming weekend for the CFL is BC losing to, let me get the standings up here again. BC plays in Saskatchewan. Calgary plays in Edmonton. A BC loss to Saskatchewan, which I don't know if Saskatchewan's going to play their starters. Probably not. They have nothing to play for. They've clinched the West Final. But still, say Jake Mayer plays a great game, and maybe Saskatchewan's backups are just that good. They beat BC somehow, and then Calgary beats Edmonton. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but that would make BC the crossover team, and Winnipeg would be going on the road to Calgary for the West semi. I truly think that's the best possible outcome from this weekend. I don't want the Bombers. I would feel, well, I don't think them playing BC in the West semi is possible because they can't pass Calgary, even if Calgary loses and Winnipeg wins, because Calgary is the tiebreaker. So I think going on the road to Montreal as the crossover team is not something I'm interested in with David Alexander, who's never lost a game as a CFL quarterback. I honestly think Montreal is the team to beat in the East. I think they're going to represent the East in the Grey Cup. So if somehow, some way, BC were to lose to Saskatchewan, drop down to 4th, Calgary wins to pass BC, and then Winnipeg wins to pass BC as well because Winnipeg is the tiebreaker over BC, making it Calgary, Winnipeg, West semifinal. I think that would be the best possible outcome for the Bombers. Calgary has really struggled this past month and a half, 2 months. They were great, the best team in the CFL the first couple of weeks, but these last number, they have not been as good. That's going to do it for this episode of the WST Bombers Report. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the stream, or the video, I should say, make sure you hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss this video every single Monday morning. Zach and I breaking down the Bombers game. We'll be back next Monday, breaking down Bombers Alouettes, looking ahead, more of a preview episode next week, I'd say, looking ahead to the playoffs. Who are the Bombers going to be playing in the first round? West semi, will they cross over? There will be lots to discuss next Monday on the WST Bombers Report. So from Zach Schnitzer, I'm Connor Hrabchak. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next Monday.